Right, good morning. Jason said to wait a few minutes. I've waited 5, so let's kick off for today. Look, very good morning. Welcome back to me, or at least my part of the Ready for Excellence program. Very nice to see some of you again, and actually there's a couple of new people on here as well, which is nice too. And I hope the rest of the program is going really well for you at this moment in time. Today, it does say personal statement writing class, and it also says interview technique. We're going to leave interview technique and probably put it to the next week's session, just because the next week's session on choosing university is a bit smaller, and the interview technique will fill in the gap quite nicely there. And besides, there's so much we can talk about with personal statement writing as well. So for today, paper, pen, the usual sort of drill. And I don't know if you had a chance to do anything I asked you to do 2 weeks ago now, but let's see if you can do what I've got today. So all I wanted you to do last time was to write down a time in your life that was important to you, what the things were that you wish everyone would know about you, and when you were younger, what did you want to be and how did you try and achieve it? Now, I'm not going to embarrass anyone and ask you to do it with me now. What I want is just that you have your answers next to you, because this is the core essence of you. This is your story. This is your narrative. This is what we want to get across to people. But we're first thing on a Friday morning. It's probably lagging towards the end of the week. If you're anything like we are in London, it's hot. Therefore, we should probably shake the brains out a little bit. So please, just in my usual format and way, will you please solve the problem in front of you? When you've got it, just put it down into the message tracking. I did this 2 days ago with people, and I don't think anyone came up with the right answer, which was quite astonishing, really. So, ladies and gentlemen, warm your brains up. What is the answer? And then I'll tell you the point as to why we actually bother using this as an example. I feel like I should have a countdown clock or something here, because otherwise it's just me, myself, and the road noise in the background. But we're giving you 1 minute here. What is the answer? 1 plus 4 equals 5, 2 5 is 12. I've got a 40 in there, jolly good. Another 40. Anyone else? Any advances on 40? Another 40. 40. We're all getting to 40. Anyone else? Just one for the road. Do we have any more on there? Doesn't really matter if you get it right or wrong on this. But, okay, so we got 40s. Let's actually have a little look at this then. What if I told you that the answer was in fact 96, based on this methodology there? So you've all come up with 40, but the answer is 96. Okay, 1 plus 4 equals 1 times 4 plus 1 equals 5, and then you follow the same methodology down to get 96 within there. None of you came up with 96. Does that matter? No, it does not, because if we follow the second methodology, we get your answer there, okay? 1 plus 4 equals 5, and then if you're looking down to the next one, you're doing 2 plus 5 equals 7 plus the previous answer to make 5, and then you come up with 40. So anyone who got 40 out there, brilliant, well done. Anyone who got 96, you're all very quiet, but well done to you as well. The point being, what is the right answer behind it? We've got one that says 96, and we've got one that says 40. The idea behind anything when it comes to personal statements and writing and selling and interviews and all of this is there is no real right or wrong answer to this, okay? Both answers are arguably right, but the methodology that you've taken to get there has been different, and that's okay because it's your methodology. In the same way that your personal statement is your route, it's your story, it's your narrative. So on we go from this bit. So you're now nicely warmed up. How do we get you to stand out? Well, let's just have a little look at something to start with. How can you stand out when these are the most overused personal statement phrases known to man? Okay, in the last year's cycle, this is the most common example. From a young age, I've always been interested in, fascinated by. That sentence came up in nearly, well, 1,800, nearly 2,000 people's personal statements. The same sentence came up. In the same way as for as long as I can remember, I have 1,500 people also use the same thing. So people are always regurgitating the same phrases. What we need to try and do is move you away from that, move you away from using stock phrases, stock sentences, and get you to write something a little bit more personal, a little bit more unique. Why do they keep coming up? Because if you follow any sort of personal statement guide or how-to on the internet or read someone else's, they are all using and saying the same things. Doesn't make them wrong, they're guides, they're just trying to give you a bit of an example. But where most personal statement guides do go wrong, is that they are teaching you to be generic. They are missing the point that this is not a shopping list. This is not just a recantation of all the things you've ever done, and it's a simplistic piece of paper that gets put in front of someone and they rubber stamp it and they give you your place. A personal statement, as we'll find out from admissions tutors, is a very personal account as to why you want to do this course. Okay, it shouldn't be containing generic in there. So if you remember what we said last time, there is no such thing as an original story, and I say that back to people who haven't actually been on this my previous session. There isn't anything such as an original story, but we're looking to make you unique, and this is how we're going to do it. Just give you the nuts and bolts of it for a second. You've got one personal statement that will apply for all 5 applications for you. We'll talk about things called joint honours courses, and sometimes those are a bit easier to get into if you remember what we were saying last time. So if you want to do economics, for example, sometimes doing maths and economics or French and economics might give you a better route in because they have slightly lower applicant numbers and therefore maybe a little more leniency in terms of the number of places that they have to hold out for. But if you're going to do a joint honours course, in a personal statement, you have to reflect both courses equally. So it is also about being clever in the fact that you have to apply for the same courses throughout, and it has to look evenly balanced for everything. Okay? English is critically important in a personal statement. I will tell you this for nothing. If it's not, it's an immediate discount. If you've got a pile of applications, about 17,000 large, and someone just can't write the English properly, I guarantee it's one way of moving a pile down from 17,000 to 9,000, okay, or whatever the numbers, but it's quite a drop within there for that. And preparation and key research is key in all of this. So whenever I start this with people, I want to do this. I want to say, who are you? And I want to say, who are you really? Okay, and we can always come back to the city's #1 exercise, but also was vaguely coined in the whole Wolf of Wall Street film, if you ever saw it. Not to the right way of doing it, but it's a very good Hollywood version of it. But there is an example. Forget the pen, could be anything. But the idea is to sell something simplistic to someone, not knowing if that person wants it. Okay? So the basic people who will ever start out in an interview format, and you say, sell me this pen, will just start telling you anything and everything that they can about the pen. Is that going to sell it to you? Probably not. Why? Because you've probably already got a pen. The better people will then graduate up from there, okay? And from that particular point, the better people will start moving to the stage of saying, well, okay, let me tell you a story, okay? Lady Gaga used this pen, or whatever it might be, and they start creating a narrative around this pen. Still, is it selling it to you? Probably not, but you might be someone who's impressed by fame and fortune and all these sorts of things, so just because by virtue of someone famous having it, product placement, I'll have one of these too. Fine, but the really good people in all of this are the people who then take it one stage further. And those people forget about it completely, okay? They forget about it and they actually talk to the person. They take the time to understand who it is they're talking to. They ask questions, they want to know about their life, they want to know a little bit more about what they do. And in doing that, they work out if this person wanted that pen or this ruler or this calculator or whatever it is in the first place. If they don't, move on, go to something else. But if they did want it, then you know how to sell it to them, and you sell it to them by talking personally to them. Again, so many people who I work with have seen me do this so many times, but the point in the personal statement and the university realm is it's still relevant, because if you're going to sell yourself to a university, and I want you to see yourself as a commodity that we are selling, if you are that, you need to talk to the universities, you need to do your research now, you need to ask them what they want of you. And there is one really simple trick to all of this. All of the universities publish on their website what they want you to write in the personal statement. The LSE is absolutely famous for this. There is a page on there that you need to find, and it will tell you everything that it wants you to write in the personal statement. It's almost like a bit of a test for you. If you want to go there, tell them what they want. Tell them what they want to hear. But equally at the same time, make sure it's what you want at the end of the day. And if all of that matches up, then we know what we're writing. Right, okay, so now we move on to the best people who write personal statements. There are people who will show that they've got something else, okay? Grades are not everything. I said last time, grades are king, grades are key. If you don't have them, you won't go anywhere. It's still true, but they are not everything. What we are looking for is to get across this sense that you have potential, profound curiosity, and intellectual depth, and this ability to make connections. That is the real thing that universities are looking for. We champion skills amongst all other things in the UK, and skills are so important. And what they show is that you have the ability to be a student, not just someone who's going to be dragged through for 3 years, because the university isn't going to drag you through. So in a personal statement, we are trying to build in cross connections between the subject that you want to study and something else, whether it's in real life or another subject that you're studying at A-level. Most people will have subjects that mix together at the A-level stage or the high school stage, wherever you are, and it's those connections that we'll be looking to try and bring into the personal statement itself. And then there's this example, I mentioned it to you before, but I always like this question, and so what? Challenge someone to really explain themselves and get them to articulate what it is that they are trying to say. Never let anyone, including yourself, be lazy, okay? You have so much that you're able to actually put down, and that so much is actually very little. You have one side of A4, roughly 650 words, 4,000 characters with spaces, and therefore every single letter, every single word has value, it has meaning, it has currency. So at the end of every sentence you ever write, I would like you to be saying, and so what? Challenging someone. I can't remember actually in truth what I gave you the example last time, but try and imagine it from the perspective that you're doing a very simple everyday action. I've often done it with tying shoelaces because that's a medical example. We've done it with tying a tie because it's something that people do. Or if you try and think of something, cooking something, that's a good example, cooking something, whether it's just something simple like here, like an omelette, something you take for granted because you know how to do it, okay? But if you ever actually take the time to explain to someone something you take for granted, it actually is quite a hard exercise to do because your brain is already wired to do it automatically. Why do we want you to do things like this? Because if you can appropriately explain something that you already know to somebody else, it will come across a lot better in that piece of paper. And you are the omelette. You are the shoelace. You are the tie. You're already expecting the university to know what it is you're saying because you know it. But the thing is, they don't know it. So if we challenge it and we say, and so what after everything, we actually get a greater meaning from the words. And that's where schools come in. That's certainly where someone like myself comes in, where we actually try and get you to be really clear and really concise. So look, let's start off. So you've got your piece of paper, you've got your pen. And what we usually do is we start by asking some questions, a series of questions here. Okay, what research have you done? What books have you read? What have you read that's relevant to the course? I'm not so concerned about your children's books and all of that. What I'm concerned about is, have you read anything around the course that you're looking to study? Then we start looking at questions to do with the course themselves, and they're just triggers. They're things that get your brain warmed up. When did you first realize you wanted to do it, and why? Okay, how did your interest in this subject develop? And looking forward, what particular elements of this subject are most appealing to you? One of my favorite little tricks for a personal statement is always getting people to look at the commonality. So what is the same between the 5 courses at university that you're looking to study? And within those 5 courses, you'll find a module that's the same, or a piece of research, or a topic, or whatever it might be. But we're going to build that into your personal statement, okay? If we're doing that, and do remember that your personal statement is only seen by that university. They cannot see where else you've applied. So this personal statement is looking like it's been written for them, whereas in the reality it's been written for 5 universities. Everyone knows that, but it looks like you've done your due diligence. So take screenshots to all these things, or revisit this later, but start working your way through these questions. the you, and we go back to the questions I asked you a week ago or 2 weeks ago and at the start today. Who are you? What makes you unique? What do you want people to know about you? Okay, try and imagine that you are meeting someone for the first time. What is it that you really want them to know about you more than anything? Be as arrogant as you like at this moment in time, but what is it? What is it about you specifically that you want people to know? Languages. Do you speak languages? If you do, pop it in there, because I guarantee you the majority of UK-based students do not. That is a huge advantage for you. So champion your linguistic skills. It's a communication-based skill. Remember, universities love skills in there, but more importantly, it's just a really big tick in the box. Your school as well, okay? What are you studying for A-levels or your high school? What are your strengths, your weaknesses? What have you really enjoyed about the course? Now, once you've answered all of these questions, we move to the next stage. Draw yourself a little table as well. This is for your extracurricular, your skill within there, okay? And under the accomplishments, I want you to write down anything and anything that you are proud of throughout the course of your life. In the middle bracket, or the middle column, I should say, now I want you to write about the skills that you gained from that particular accomplishment. What did you learn within there? And on the far right column, so 3 columns to this, what is the relevance to the course? Now, if you can match up everything in there, and believe me, you won't be able to match up everything within there, but if you can, then it has a good chance of making the personal statement. If it has no relevance to the course and you've gained no skills from it, it's not going in there. And this is where we move away from the shopping list idea. On the right-hand side of the screen, you've also got this diagram here, all right? What I would like you to do is to, on something like this, work from the middle. What are you interested in? Then in the next circle, what are the specifics to what you're interested in? The next circle, why are they specific and why are you interested? And the fourth circle, do you have the experience? You don't have to do all of these exercises, but they're good ways of starting your thinking process. Do you have the experience necessary for this particular course? We've done all of these bits to it. Then we win your place. You're thinking really hard now. You're thinking, why you? Why not the person sat next to you? Who's making that decision and what are they looking for? And if you've sold yourself like the pen, like the ruler, like the calculator, you'll know the answers to these. You're selling yourself to the university, but critically, you're selling yourself to the admissions team within the university, not to the academic lecturers. They're not reading your personal statement. You're selling yourself to an admissions team who have a criteria checklist to see whether you are going to be able to join their course. That differs at the top end, but for the majority of universities, it is a team that is looking at this. They're looking for 4 things here: commitment, evidence of research, future plans, and suitable skills and qualities. So a question to the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, which is the most important of these 4 bullet points, please? In the message chat. Commitment, evidence of research, future plans, suitable skills and qualities. And just help me by once again reaffirming that you're all there and attentively listening. It's always where the nervous part for people comes in, is where you're asked to answer the question. Okay, well, as you find your voice and we move forward, I will say this: they are all important, arguably. Commitment, evidence, research, future plans, suitable skills and qualities, all of them are, but the key is evidence. Make sure you have done what you say you have done, or at the very least, make sure it absolutely sound like you have done what you have done, because evidence is what will make you either stand out or fall away. At the end of the day, you need to make sure it's there. Evidence as well. Evidence means that you've done it, you've read it, you've done the work experience, and what that has done in itself, in a very simplistic fashion, is confirm to you that this is the right course. When people write these things, they are always in a better position once they have done that research, and research is evidence. But we do a lot of outreach at MPW to universities, and have a very good relationship with university admissions tutors as well. We ask them what they are actually looking for, and the answer is usually unanimous, but it comes back in this list, and I've categorized it here. Interest, motivation, English, as I said before, no spelling, no grammar mistakes, clearly written. Wider interest, so these cross connections, the work experience, if it is relevant, academic interests, responsibilities. Remember that table I was getting you to draw within there? This will help with that. Paragraph break, so it's written in a good structure. Be honest, so evidence, and reference to current studies as well. Most people will churn out this, the average personal statement, and that's usually something where you're writing, I want to do the course at university because I like it at A level, it interests me, you might talk a little bit about the course, and so about 6 to 8 lines of this is going to be based on that subject of study, but then more of it is based around you, the person, the sporting wizard that you are, or whatever it might be, the Olympiad, or whatever it is that you're doing. It's too much. More than the personal statement is about you and not about why. And that's not what we're looking for. It's a bit too generic. So if we challenge it again with and so what, we come up with something that is hopefully going to be quite frankly excellent. And it's going to have high impact opening sentence. Remember, you think of a book, think of a movie has to grab you straight away, a book has to grab you, otherwise the book closes and you leave the cinema. Okay, so we want something that will draw people in. Be really careful about using quotes unless they are particularly relevant to you, because they simply take up space and time. And also, the clue is in the title here, it's a personal statement. Do we need to know what Karl Marx said, or Nietzsche, or Sartre, or anyone else? No. Probably not, unless it has had a profound impact on your life and it takes you forward. So more than the half this personal statement is going to be about the subject area. You're going to show your passion for it. Academics, people at university, they're passionate about their subject. Admissions teams want to line up people who are going to be just as passionate to be taught by someone there. Okay, that's their responsibility. Work experience, career aspirations, as long as they are relevant. Once again, you're always explaining why, not what you've done, okay? Why you've done it and what you've learned, not what have you done. That's how we show personality within all of this. Try not to make jokes and things like that. People do that, they think that shows personality. In a way it does, but sometimes that shows your personality in a contrary way. So this is how we do it. Again, forgive me to people who know me on this call and have seen this before, but try and draw yourself the human body as a diagram, and I use it all the time in medicine and in fact in personal statements in general, because it's a good way of looking at it. Draw yourself this or take a selfie of yourself, but I want you to split up the body, okay? Head, shoulders and torso, legs, ankles and feet, and then a line underneath, just to be done in this way. So you do it to yourself though, because this is personal, so make it about you. And make it in this way. This is the 5-paragraph principle that we work to for personal statements itself. So what you want to do, have your head in there. The head, the human brain will always make a judgment about you the moment it sees somebody. It is only when someone opens their mouth that then colour is attached to that particular picture, and the human brain develops its idea and its thought as to what it thinks of you. So that is your opening. How can you portray yourself? So dress it up. The education side is the body of it, the body of evidence. What have you done? What have you been studying? The legs, the legwork, the effort that you put in is the work experience and the wider reading. The amount of time you should spend on extracurricular, if you're looking at a diagram form of this, is your ankles and your feet. That's about 20% of this statement, only 20. And then your closing argument to the jury is literally one sentence underneath. So if you're going to do this as an example, write a description of the human body underneath and use it as a parallel to when you're writing your personal statement, one closing sentence that really describes the rest of the personal statement. It's not a conclusion, it's a summation. All the time remembering we want to use skills in your personal statement as much as possible. Skills is a really important word, please, and cling to it. Here's the code, 4,000 characters with spaces, 650 words. It can be no longer than 47 lines. You won't be able to underline or use italics, but do use paragraphs. It's not a continuous block. You have to have paragraphs, and we work on the basis that we probably can use 5 paragraphs effectively. I put together a checklist for you as well. So once you've written your personal statement, or as you're writing it, refer back to this checklist. Does it do all of the things on this list? It probably doesn't need to do all of them, but at least 75%, so 3/4 of this list should be ticked, okay? And this is based upon what universities and admissions tutors are looking for, okay? I will say this as well, I've done it now 13 years, something like that. It doesn't change. It doesn't change. The only thing that has changed in the period of time is you used to be able to apply to 6 universities, now you can apply to 5. Other than that, it hasn't changed. And if it hasn't changed, if you're not doing it, you're missing the point. So let's go through the 5-paragraph principle. Introduction. Your turn. Write down what you think should be included in an introduction. Does anyone want to feel bold enough to say what you think should be included in an introduction? If not, of course I will go through it. But does anyone know what you should include in an introduction? Now, the hint I'll give you while you're thinking on that is if you struggle to write this, write it last. In fact, try and write it last anyway. This isn't an essay. 5 paragraphs can be written independently and then we tie it together. But because your introduction is the most important, it is also the thing that stops people writing. So therefore, write it last if you don't know your answer to that. But what should go into an introduction, please? Either typed or unmute your microphone and come and join me. What should go into an introduction? The explanation, why you have chosen the type of course you're applying for. Okay, you need to mention the type of the course that you're applying for within the first few sentences of this personal statement. We need to know what it is. There should be no ambiguity in there at all. While I say this is a story, okay, it's not a great story. You need to be able to use that really effectively within the first couple of lines. Great is in terms of length. Find your theme. Okay, finding your theme, if you're going for something like law, pick a type of law that you're really interested in, find some cases that work for you. Find your theme in terms of the modern world. Try and avoid things like COVID because they'll be overused typically at this moment in time. But if you're going for politics, international relations, sociology, law, Black Lives Matter, Me Too, all of these sorts of things you can tie in. Find your theme. Maybe actually what you want to do is tie it towards female rights throughout the years, or the representation of females in literature, whatever it might be within there. Try and find a theme. Themes will keep you on track as much as anything, as much as keeping it interesting. You can start from the basis of saying, look, I first became interested in this when that's fine, because then you develop it into something that is unique and personal to you. Referencing your studies is another good way of starting. What you shouldn't start with is, I've been influenced by my family. My family are all in law. My family are all doctors. I was ill growing up. Any of this, it might be personal, it might be unique, but it is so common and overused because people who it doesn't attribute itself to still use it. Therefore, how does a university pick it apart when they don't know you? So we can build that theme in there. We just don't use it as our opening impact. Subjects, what have you done to investigate the course? Okay, what do you think should be included here? And this is where we're talking about the cross-referencing of subjects, cross-referencing against course modules. Find your commonality between all 5 courses, all right? And into this bit, continue with your theme, mention books that you've read. In fact, a very important point on books, never just say what you've read. What did you read within there, okay? Reading The Economist is fine, but it gives us nothing. What did you read in The Economist of any interest to us? Okay, pick a topic, go for it. Don't just list the subjects, mention particular areas of interest that you can now tie back in, all right? But wider reading is crucial for the majority of courses. Newspapers, magazines, podcasts and TED Talks are literally worth their weight in gold now. Without even needing to leave the comfort of your own home, you can do this. You can listen, you can be inspired, you can take others' ideas and use them or develop them or comment on them. Comment on them is king. Then we get to the work experience part of it. It's relevant provided that you can think about the skills regardless of the job. So anything is relevant provided it can be related to the degree course. If you've got the option from the outset now and you're not embarking on this straight away, then obviously try and tailor the work experience that you might get to the course that you want to do. But other than medicine, dentistry, veterinary, engineering, work experience is not the be-all and end-all. Wider reading has far more prominence. So if you're struggling for space, It's not interesting for us to know you work in a shop, really. It's going to be far more interesting to know that you've read Animal Farm and why you've read it and what you took from it. Okay, but always think about what you're learning within there and the transferable skills element. Paragraph 4, and I am whipping through this, but only because this is recorded anyway, and we can always ask questions at the end. The extracurricular side. Write down what you think should be in this part, remembering why, not what. We want to know things like your hobbies, your awards, prizes, responsibilities more than anything. If you've been in a team, are you a team player? Do you recognize the difference between being a leader and being a team player at times? That sort of thing will be very relevant for a personal statement. But you've only got about 3 or 4 sentences to characterize and capture this. Olympiads will be very useful if you're an academically focused person, you want to go for something scientific or mathematically related, pop that in there as well, definitely. Other than that, just try and keep it to the point within the last couple of years of your life, not as far back as you go, unless you're a professional sports person. The last couple of years, maybe even just the last year, 18 months would be useful. I know we move out of COVID here, so the last year, 18 months has been at home, so you can use creative license beyond that timescale. And then look, we come to the end, the review part of it, and write this bit first, okay? This is your elevator pitch. If you don't know what an elevator pitch means, it means the time it takes for you to get from the ground floor up to the floor that you be in an elevator, which is usually about anything between 5 to 20 seconds within there. So write this first, your elevator pitch. Be really factual, okay? Don't use phrases like my love, my passion, it'll be an honor. It's always been my dream. It hasn't. It really hasn't for the majority of people and the majority of courses. Universities know that, so we don't need to write it. They don't believe it, and you don't believe what you're saying. Try and use different words. Keep those sentences short, keep them simple, keep them to the point. Don't try to impress the universities with the way you write. Let the content be the thing that impresses you. Now, in the development to that particular statement there, try and use academically focused language for the course that you want to do. Yes. Don't use a thesaurus to change most of the words and try and make yourself sound more intelligent. No, because often people who do that change the meaning and the inflection of the sentences. But using specific terminology in macro or microeconomics, like game theory, for example, that is an absolute must within there. But changing words to mean different things, not a must. And always think, and so what? So you've been through, you've reviewed your personal statement, and every single sentence you've either said to yourself, and so what, or someone else has said it. It's better if someone else says it, because then you're saying it back to them out loud. I don't know if you've ever done this, if you've ever read an essay back, or even just a book. There's a big difference between reading it and not saying anything, and reading it out loud, okay? And often if you do this with an essay, it's a good technique actually for exam technique, but if you do this paragraph by paragraph and you read it out loud, it either makes sense or it doesn't, in a way that just simply reading it, your brain always convinces you that something makes sense. But if you read it out loud, you hear it as well. If it doesn't make sense, move it on. And then you've got the closing statement, okay? The closing statement, this isn't it. The closing statement is just one line, one simple line to the jury, to the panel that says, look, this has been the course I would like to study for this particular reason. It just sums up what you've been talking about before. You need to take me over somebody else because ultimately I am better. It doesn't need any comparison. In fact, never make comparisons against someone else. Always be true to yourself and what you want to achieve. Okay, just be honest in that final sentence. But that final sentence should just be about the course. I'm looking forward to studying this course because I think it will help me on my future career path as a criminal barrister. Whatever it is, you can reference that career aspiration in there that admissions tutors are quite keen on. Try and leave that bit to the end. So what I've done at the end of our session is I've done 2 things for you. I've shown you the world's worst personal statement, and I will then show you what is a much better personal statement. But looking through this one on the screen, as you read through it, what sort of things are coming out at you as to good, bad, indifferent, okay? What sort of things come out from this personal statement to you? And I want things like, what course are they looking to study? All right? What course are they looking to study? What have they done towards it? do you think they get an offer? Where are they looking to apply? Try and join in for the last 5 minutes on this one. Find your voice, find your confidence. Any ideas? I know it's quite long to read through, so as you read through it, flag something up to me. Okay, well, let me give you a bit of a start to it, as always. Right, it starts with a quote. Only the weak-minded or the very weak-minded refuse to be influenced by literature and poetry. It starts with a quote, doesn't need to. Hang on, sorry, we have someone in here. It's unclear in which way the PS is going. Absolutely it is. I mean, to be absolutely critical, it's not quite deciding whether it wants to be English or history. In terms of what it's actually trying to apply for. We get a lot of literature in there, so we understand it's English, but they've also mentioned language and not even talked about the language at all. It starts with a quote, and yet the quote doesn't, while she tries to bring it into why it is she's using it, at the same time, the quote isn't that relevant. It's actually quite long as well, so it's already taken up a fair amount of space. It then starts by talking about reading as a child, the very hungry caterpillar. Well, okay, if you read this properly, this person is wanting to go to a top university and starting with a children's book of I once read The Hungry Caterpillar and then doesn't really actually explain anything about it, doesn't take it forward. It shows personality in a very weak sort of way, okay? It's quite colloquial, which means it's written in your standard way of speaking. You'd be amazed how many people write colloquial personal statements now, and we have to pare back the language an awful lot, okay? You never write things in brackets, you never put exclamation marks into personal statements. You need to let your reader be the person to have the reaction to it, not you within there giving them that reaction. So the exclamation marks are not there. It talks about films more than it talks about books, so if you want to actually go into English literature, don't fall into that trap. It's a shopping list of everything they've ever read or done, or etc. And it doesn't really actually give us what they've learned from it. It uses things like I am best in, I am the top of my class, I am this, I am that. Let people again decide that for themselves. You're up against a very, very competitive pool, so arrogance has no place in this. It mentions the university that they want to study at. That's a no, because as we said, 5 universities that don't know where you're applying, you don't want to mention one of them in there, so move that particular bit on as well. And just generally speaking, I mean, we could rip this one absolutely to shreds, and what is absolutely true about this, it never went to the actual point of application, of course it didn't, but this was a first draft of someone who was applying to Oxbridge. It needs more. It needs more academic weight. It needs less messing around within there, if we can put it that way. Okay, personality comes through in what you've actually done. Now this one looks heavier because finally we have something good in the whole thing. I will say that this isn't perfect because no personal statement should be perfect to anyone else but yourself. I can still find things that we'd say wrong about it. But if you just have a quick flick through and a review of this one now, what sort of things do you like about it? Start formulating your own view based upon what we're talking about. It follows the principle of what we were saying, but it actually takes it in a slightly different way. That doesn't make it wrong, it makes it unique, but it still gets everything in there. So what sort of things do you like about it? And if that's too difficult to question, at least in the message box, write down what course this person is applying for. What course? What course are they applying for? That's right, psychology and sociology within there. It's a dual honours course, and what you can note in this one is it reflects both psychology and sociology. It doesn't try and link them together too much. It talks about them independently. That is okay. If you take this approach and reference them independently and not try and find too many cross connections, then all the courses you apply for must be psychology and sociology. Otherwise, it just looks strange. If you link them in and interweave them, then you could either apply for pure psychology, pure sociology, or psychology and sociology, because it's a little bit more cleverly done. What I think is unique and quite nice about this personal statement is the person talks about what's interesting in their life, not just about the course to start with. So music being something big for him. But music, he then immediately brings into why it's relevant for the course that he's looking to study. Okay? He uses academia within there, so what he's read, also some psychology and sociology based research, so things that have some sort of meaning to it. So name dropping, but also using academic wording in there too. What I thought was particularly interesting as well is the fact that he started down the route of wanting to do something different, but the work experience dragged him towards this being what he wanted to do. That's a very nice personal thing to hear as well, because it actually proves more than ever that this is the right course for someone because they've researched into it and researched into other things as well. Okay. Then it goes through, it doesn't give us very much of his extracurricular, which is my only real criticism towards the whole thing. It dwells a little bit too long on the academic side of things, but it doesn't make it wrong, it just makes it a personal choice. So we don't know what else he could advance to the university other than the fact he's probably going to play a bit of music, but we know he would be good for the course itself. Okay. He's referenced back to things he's done at school, and at the very end, he's made it personal by saying, this is who I am. And because I'm talking to people who also come from different parts of the world and different systems, try and almost my sum up note to you today is try and remember who you are and where you come from. That makes you so interesting and so unique. Okay, the fact you haven't been through the UK route all of your life, what is it you've taken from that experience? What is it you've taken from learning in a different country? We already take our hats off to you in this country for you taking the decision to move over here and study in the United Kingdom. That's a huge tick in the box. We'll make sure we're mentioning it in here. Not that you've faced challenges and adversity, we get all of that, but just how it's helped to develop you as a person is a wonderful way of putting it at the end, and do mention it within there as well. Right. Any questions at the very end? I didn't get too much by way of audience participation there, but sometimes you never do on these things. So instead, obviously it will be sent round to you. Obviously it is something that we will be able to do together later on. But in the meantime, are there any questions? And Helen, you are most welcome indeed. Nice to see you on here again. Well, you have about 3 minutes before someone far more interesting and charismatic than myself will join and do something different with you. If you do have questions, come back to us, come back to me. This is recorded so you can revisit it. Please do revisit it, because on here, it is a step-by-step walkthrough guide. Even that checklist itself is all I want you to do, just to tick the box every single time when you're reading it. And so what? Just always challenge it. If anyone ever wants help uniquely with their personal statement, I'm just going to write once again, as I always do, my email address in here, send them over, and I'll go through it with you step by step. In the meantime, have a very good rest of your day. As always, it's been a pleasure. Next week, to finish off on my particular segment of Ready for Excellence, choosing a university and success in interviews. Okay, and that won't just be success in interviews at university, because only a couple of them do that. We'll also look a little bit more at interviews in the real world for the job market as well. Okay, so for one more week, take care, have a very good day, and all the very best. Bye bye for now.